All right. Hey, hey. How are y'all doing today? Great to see you all. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. We're going to get dialed in here. If you got questions about the recruiting process, drop them in the comments. In the meantime, I'm going to talk about something real quick in recruiting, and that's the recruiting cycle that a lot of people don't know about. So while questions are coming in, I'm going to talk about the recruiting cycle. Can't hear me. Can you hear me? Someone says they can't hear me. Can you drop a yes in the chat right now if you can hear me? I'm muted. Why am I muted? Hold on. Am I muted right now? Oh, someone says yes. I don't think I'm muted. No. For the people where I'm muted, you got to turn the volume up. All right. So drop your questions in the chat if you got questions about the college recruiting process. For the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to talk about the recruiting cycle while the questions are coming in. So here's what I mean by the recruiting cycle. There's this really interesting thing that happens in the cycle. And this is what I mean. Okay. So a lot of families get emotionally wrapped up in the process. And when you first start the process, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? You're like, I don't know what's up. I don't know what's down. I don't know how to make videos. I don't know how to send emails to coaches. I don't know how to post content on social media. You just don't know what you're doing, right? And then what happens is you get like one little piece of good something that happens. You get a response from a coach. You play really well at a showcase. Something happens, and you're like, wait, I did something right, but I don't know what I did right. It's like, I don't know what happened there, right? And then you move on to, well, that good thing that happened, it happens again and again. And you're like, wait, we're making progress. This is great, right? And you start getting interest from coaches. And you're like, we're grooving. Like, this is good. We're off to the races. We're doing a lot better than I thought that we were doing. Now we're in good shape. I love this, right? But then something interesting happens and it gets hard again. You're like, wait, it's getting hard again. Maybe those coaches, they've stopped responding to me now. They've ghosted me. I'm not getting the same kind of interest that I was getting before. What happened? And then you end up back at, I don't know what I'm doing. And you're back at the beginning again, right? And you go through this phase of, I don't know what I'm doing. Wait, I got something good, but I don't know how I got that. Okay, we're starting to make some progress here. We're absolutely grooving here. We're doing amazing. Wait, it's getting hard again. And then it goes back down, right? The funny thing is that this cycle happens. And if you have questions about the college recruiting process, drop them in the chat. Whenever I'm done with this little spiel about the recruiting cycle, I'm going to get to those. So drop all questions you have in the chat. What's really interesting about this, though, is that families typically do this cycle 3 to 4 times in the process. So it usually happens in the very beginning when you first start because you don't know anything about recruiting and you're trying to get on coaches' radars. But then what happens is you go through all of that and you start getting interest from coaches and you're like, man, we're grooving. We're doing amazing. But the thing is that you don't have the next skill, which is building relationships with coaches. So you get all that interest and then you're like, wait, now they're ghosting me. This isn't moving forward. And you're back to, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And then you have to learn how to build relationships with college coaches. And the same thing happens again. You learn a little bit and you're like, wait, something good happened. I don't know how to repeat that. Okay, now we're starting to do this over and over. This is good. Okay, now we're grooving, right? And then you end up back to where you were before, where you're like, okay, so we built all these relationships with coaches, but now I'm in limbo. I don't have offers. And I feel like, we've had phone calls with them and they've seen us play multiple times, but now how do I actually get them to give me an offer? And then you end up back at the beginning again, where it's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so it happens again, right? And that's the same cycle that happens over and over in the process. You go from, I don't know what I'm doing, all the way to we're grooving, and you go back to, I don't know what I'm doing. And that happens about 3 to 4 times in the process. Here's why this is important. The college recruiting process is incredibly emotional. It's a roller coaster. You're going like this the whole time. And if you don't know that that's what's going to happen, then you feel like you're getting whipped around all the time. But if you know that's going to happen, then oh, okay, I'm going down now. I'm going up now. And you can feel that and you know that's what's supposed to happen. So if you know that you're going to have those moments where you're feeling amazing and you're about to go back to square one, as long as you know that's coming, families typically handle that a lot better. It's when they don't know that that's coming that they get whiplash and they get really frustrated by the process. Does that make sense? All right. That's the recruiting cycle. Let's answer some questions here that are in the chat. If you got questions about college recruiting, drop them in the chat. How do you know if it's an official visit or not? Official visits are usually labeled by the coach or the program paying for something. So if the coach is going to cover your travel, if the coach is going to cover your meals, if the coach is going to cover any sort of transportation or activities, something like that, that's what makes it an official visit. An unofficial visit is when coaches are not paying for anything. You're just showing up to the campus. You can still have one-on-one time with the coaches. You can still do all those good things, but they're not paying for it. So the difference between an official visit and an unofficial visit is whether the coach is paying for something or not. Is there a focus on a particular sport? No, we've helped 14 different sports here at D1 Scholarship. How much is your fee? We're hosting a workshop. I'll throw it up now. We're hosting a workshop next week, January 20th. And it's just going to be on email. It'll be $99 for the workshop. That's it. $99. If you want to come learn, we've sent more than 1 million emails to college coaches. And we'll show you exactly what it is that's working. It took me 5 years to learn this stuff. Why do coaches respond? Why do they not respond? What do you have to have dialed in? If you want to learn that stuff, just go to d1scholarship.com/email workshop. Those workshops are $99 a piece. For the full shebang, it's $5,000. Do coaches look at my results on a national level? Yes, they will look at your results on a national level. How do you get your name out there to coaches after having a season-ending injury? So I will tell you, injuries are the most difficult part of college recruiting if they happen to you. And injuries are very, very challenging for a number of reasons. But the main reason is that you can no longer play in front of coaches because you're injured, and you don't have as much video because you had a season-ending injury. So you don't have as much to send them, right? So the idea there is that when you're injured, you need to do a couple things. One is that you need to leverage whatever video you have. So whatever video you have from pre-injury, you got to be able to leverage that video and continue conversations. I think of a family that I actually just filmed a testimonial interview with last week. It's up on the YouTube channel if you want to go see that. But that family had an injury. It was a football player. He got injured in the 3rd week of season. He tore his quad, something like that. And he's out for the rest of the year. And I remember talking to the dad, and the dad's like, well, I guess we just can't do anything now. And I was like, no, you can't just shut everything down. You have to still try to make progress with whatever we have. And what we were actually able to do is start a couple conversations with coaches, not as many as if he was fully healthy, right? But we had a couple conversations with coaches, and then that was able to just build momentum to when he was fully healthy again. There were a couple coaches that were just waiting for him to get healthy, and that's a perfect place to be because you're not starting from scratch. You're not starting at zero. And so even if you are injured, you have to find a way to make progress. Even if it's the tiniest little bit of incremental progress, you can't shut your whole process down. It'll be way too hard to pick it back up again. You have to use whatever you have at your disposal. That's the most important thing. We have a YouTube comment, or it looks like Twitter comment. Now that my daughter's committed, what should we be doing right now as far as communication? Are we still posting videos reaching out to that coach? So I would still keep that coach updated with stuff, just because now you're competing for a couple things. One is you're competing to keep that scholarship so they don't pull it and give it to somebody else. But the second piece of that is you're competing for a spot on that team now, right? Like you're competing for playing time even before you even step on campus. So continuing to send video, continuing to keep them updated with awards, accomplishments, anything like that happens. All of those things are still really good to do. And I would continue posting stuff on social media. The reason I would continue posting stuff on social media is if that school, for whatever reason, pulls the offer, you don't end up there, whatever it is, it's still you're still getting exposure in that case, and it might be easier to go find another home. Now, I wouldn't recommend necessarily contacting more schools. That depends on the situation. Is it a verbal commit? Did you actually sign? There's lots of things there. But I would continue posting on social media. I'd continue to let the coach know, the school that you committed to, about good things that are happening. That is still 100% worth your time. But the frequency might be less. Like if you're going to frequently update schools that you don't have offers from, like if you're still in the recruiting process, that's going to be a lot more frequent than if you are committed. If you're committed, once a month is probably more than enough at that point. What questions to ask to get a response, how to move the conversation forward. So questions to get a response and how to move the conversation forward are really two different things. Okay. Because you can get a response, but that's not necessarily moving the conversation forward. So you need both of those things, right? So, in terms of what questions to ask to get a response, the simplest one that you can ask is, are you recruiting for my position in grad class? It's like the easiest question that you can ask. Now, there's a number of other questions that we'll ask, but if you're just like, I just need something to put in there, that's the question that I would ask. Because the reality is, if they are recruiting for your position in grad class, then they're going to read your email, they're going to open it, they're going to look at all those types of things, right? So that's really the main question that I would ask. In terms of how to move the conversation forward, that is a much more complicated answer, because you're talking about many months that you're going to be communicating with these coaches. That requires a number of different questions. It requires a number of different pieces of content and types of content. There are 9 different types of content, right? So keep that in mind, that getting initial interest is very different than building on that interest. And man, there's a lot to talk about in terms of building interest that I just won't be able to go into fully now. As a club basketball coach with 10th and 11th grade basketball players, what can I do to help in this process? I love that question. And we actually had a question like that similar the other day from a high school coach who was like, hey, how can I help my players? And so that's a fantastic question. First of all, I appreciate you already, because you care about your players and you know that you have some part to play in this, but you don't know what that part is. Here's what I told the coach yesterday, and I think this is valuable for you to hear as well. The first thing is, let me relieve you of the burden that it is your job to get those kids recruited. That is too much. As long as you're not making the promise to them when they join your club team, hey, I'm going to help you get recruited. All right, if you make that promise, then you got to deliver on that promise and you got to help them. But as long as you're not making that promise, really your job is to do 2 things. One is develop those players, like develop them to make them as good as they can possibly be. Okay. And by the way, I have a political answer and like my biased answer. Okay. And so like my unbiased answer is encourage them to not rely on you and to make videos, send emails, send DMs, post on social media. Encourage them that the showcases and camps that you're putting them in are probably not going to be enough. And I know that's hard, because as a club guy, you're like, well, that's what I'm selling them. Like, hey, if you play for my team, I'll get you in the right tournaments. But they're going to get worse results if they're only reliant on club, games for exposure. So encourage them to be proactive in the process. And then my totally biased opinion is to send them to our free content. You're not selling them our content. You're not doing any of that. But like, we've helped a lot of kids. Okay. And we're at the forefront. We're in the process right now. And we post hundreds of pieces of free content. So send them to our Instagram, our TikTok, our YouTube, our Twitter. Just send them to those places where they can get free information. They don't have to pay anything. They can get free information in those places. That's my biased answer, because I think that we post as good of free college recruiting content as out there on the internet. Okay, if I want to play college sports, but I don't have the money to go to schools around me, what should I do to get scholarships? If you're not going to be going to all of the showcases and camps, you need to communicate digitally with college coaches. So if you don't have money to go around, you need to put 10 times more effort into all things digital marketing. Emailing college coaches, DMing college coaches, posting content. If you're not going to showcases and camps, you need to do 10 times more of that stuff than all the other players who are going to those events. And to be real with you, even if you have money to go to those events, you should be doing that anyway, because you'll save a ton of money if you're good at marketing yourself to college coaches through digital methods. But especially if you don't have the money, that's what you got to do. I do track and field, and I'm a senior. I don't have a lot of communication with schools, but I've emailed a bunch. How to get coaches to notice me. My first question would be, you said you've emailed a bunch. How much is a bunch, right? Because if I've emailed a bunch means I've emailed 30 schools, you haven't emailed a bunch. You've just emailed, Okay. I would say a bunch starts at 100 schools. If you've emailed 100 schools, and specifically track and field, because email is a way that track and field kids get recruited often. So you're on the right platform. For something like football, that's not the right platform, right? But for track and field, that's the right platform. So you're on the right platform. If you've contacted 100 plus schools, then the answer is you've contacted enough schools to get some sort of traction. You're either contacting schools that you are not capable of playing at, or there's something wrong in your process, right? Like there's something in your email, there's something in your evidence, there's something in the way you're communicating with college coaches, all of those things. Again, it depends on the bunch, because if the bunch is 30 emails, then you haven't emailed enough and you need to go contact more schools. If you've contacted 100 plus schools via email for track and field, then there's something else that's wrong with your process, and it's likely something due to the quality of it. And that's really where you should be spending your time. How do you work around transfer portal and international players for soccer recruiting for seniors? Yes, it's a good question. I filmed a different testimonial interview with a family the other day, and they play soccer, committed to a D1 school. I actually posted, I think, a snapshot of that testimonial yesterday. They got a $146,000 scholarship to a D1. And one of the things that that family said, it was specifically the mom, was talking about how difficult soccer is, because you're not only dealing with the transfer portal, which is common in, a lot of sports, but football, basketball, baseball, tons of transfer portal happening, right? Well, that's happening in soccer, but also unique to soccer is the number of international recruits that you have. That doesn't happen as much in things like football, right? Like football doesn't have a ton of international recruits. Soccer has a lot of international recruits, and those players can come in at 20 years old and still have 4 years of eligibility. So you're dealing with a couple different things. And so when you say, how do you work around the transfer portal for soccer recruiting? And you say for seniors, but this is really true for any grad class in soccer. Is all the things that we normally talk about. It's about doing the ordinary things for an extraordinary period of time. And so you need legit evidence that your kid is good, and you need a lot of it. This is one thing that counteracts the transfer portal. When you think about the portal, right? Anybody that's in here has heard about the portal, because the portal is transforming college recruiting. And these coaches can now go get a 22-year-old, right, who's 5 years older than your kid, 5 years bigger, stronger, faster, more mature, been away from home before. That's a completely different type of recruit. And so your kid is competing against that kid. So how does your kid compete and actually make this a fair fight, or at least somewhat have a fighting chance? The answer is that you probably need 4 to 5 times more evidence than a transfer portal kid, because college coaches view your kid as high risk because they're so young, and because they're not as big or strong or fast. They haven't played against collegiate competition, and all of that is true for transfer portal players. So what you need to do is de-risk your high school kid, which means that you need 4 to 5 times more evidence proving that they are who they say they are. So that's the first thing. And the way we'll work around the transfer portal is we will showcase way more evidence than transfer portal players, and really more than high school players in general. I think when we did the 2026 trends report, we analyzed over 8,000 athletes. The average family makes about 10 videos. Average D1 scholarship family ends up making like 60 plus, right, over the course of their recruiting process. We have 6 times more evidence. That's how we compete against the transfer portal. The other thing is that you're going to need to contact a lot more schools. So traditional recruiting advice says contact 20 to 30 schools. You'll be fine. I think those people are crazy. I don't know how they're generating results, and they're probably not generating results if that's what they say they're doing. It's not nearly enough. With the transfer portal, you need to contact way more schools. So you need way more evidence. You need way more schools. The last thing that I'll mention, and again, there's a lot that goes into this, but the last thing I'll mention for this is you need to be on multiple platforms. We ran the numbers on it in the trends report. 59% more interest for families who are on multiple platforms, meaning you're emailing coaches, you're sending DMs, you're posting content on social media, you're going to events, you're leveraging whatever coach connections your coach has. Like, you're doing multiple things to get exposure. That is another way that you will be able to sort of flip the odds in your favor when you're competing against transfer portal athletes. And this is happening in every sport. If you're like, man, does that advice apply to me in my sport? Yeah, I don't even know what sport you are in, but we've done this for 14 different sports now. And that's the case, is if you do those 3 things, you're in a much better place against the portal. Okay. Went on an official visit as a junior. They didn't talk to me about a track offer. It's a new sprint program. Now what? So, the thing about track is that track typically recruits a lot later than other sports, right? So, stuff like volleyball, lacrosse recruit aggressively early. Lacrosse recruits aggressively late. So, that's probably part of the reason that you didn't actually get an offer, is because they recruit a lot later. So, you went on an official visit and they didn't give you an offer, and it's a new program. Now, essentially, what they're saying is that we're not 100% sure that you're our person, that we're going to recruit you. So you need to continue to provide evidence showing them that your kid, that you, I don't say your kid, so it might be you as the kid. You need more evidence showing them that you're good. That's what you need. Like, if they're not 100% sure that you're the one to get the offer, you have to give them evidence to make them sure of that. So you need way more evidence that you're sending to college coaches, and specifically this school. It's great that you went on an official visit. They like you, they see you as a potential recruit, all those good things, but the job is far from done. You need to give them a lot more evidence. Senior QB, no offers. DMing on Twitter, no responses. How much content are you posting on Twitter? So you're on the right platform. I would also email. I mean, you're late in the process. You need to be doing everything. So you should be emailing, not just DMing coaches. But Twitter is probably going to be the main source of your interest. And right now is a great time to get interest for the next, like month and a half, 2 months. That's when a lot of football offers are going to go out. But my first question would be like, how much content are you posting on social media as well? Because it should be a lot of content. You should be following a lot of schools. There's a lot of things that you need to leverage on Twitter. And so all the film that you have from this last year needs to be literally everywhere. DMing coaches is not going to be enough, especially this late. But even if you were early, I would still say it's not going to be enough. You're going to need to do more. You're going to need to email coaches, and you're going to need to post content on social media. That's my advice for you. Thanks for up and down analogy, because it is that. Yeah, 100%, Amy. Like, that's the recruiting process. And you're going to continue to feel like you know what you're doing, and then feel like you know absolutely nothing. And that is called the recruiting process. And the reason that happens is because you have a skill deficiency, right? There's like a number of skills that you need to have in order to get the offers that your kid deserves. And what happens is you learn one skill and you feel like you're on top of the world. And then you realize that you need another skill in order to actually get to the next level. And you're like, oh man, I don't have that skill. And then you feel like you know nothing. And then you have to learn that skill and you feel on top of the world. And that just happens over and over and over again. And that's really the recruiting process in a nutshell. What's the next step after reaching out to college coaches and then responding back with a camp invite? Probably relevant for a lot of people in here, right? How many of you have sent an email or a DM to a college coach and then gotten a camp invite back? Really normal, right? And it doesn't mean that they're not interested. You just have to know what to do with that camp invite. Now, in terms of what to do with that camp invite, the biggest thing is you need to start a conversation. You have to be able to respond to that camp invite and start a conversation with those schools, meaning you get them to actually respond back, not with an automated response, not with a camp invite, but some sort of other thing. It doesn't even need to be, yeah, we really see you on our list and we're really recruiting you. No, I'm not even talking about that. I just mean like some sort of human response is the thing. So the biggest thing that I would tell you is you need to continue to send evidence to that school. So you need to keep them updated with your schedules. You need to continue to send them video evidence. Again, there's 9 different types of evidence that you should be sending to college coaches. You should be hitting them with all of that, right? Like, you should be continuing to absolutely pound those schools so that you have a better idea of whether that camp invite is generic or whether they're legitimately going to be looking at you when you get on campus. And so you need way more touch points. You got the foot in the door at the camp invite. Awesome. You're doing a great job. But now the game really starts, right? Now the game really starts. You got to contact that school a lot. You got to send them a lot of evidence. I try to say this over and over. And by the way, I keep saying the word evidence. You guys know what I mean when I say evidence. Proof that your kid is good. That's what evidence is. And evidence can come in a number of different forms. It can come in the form of video. It can come in the form of stats. It can come in the form of awards or accomplishments. It can come in the form of a coach recommendation. It can come in the form of an in-person evaluation. Like there's a lot of different types of evidence, but you need proof that your kid is good. So if you have a camp invite, great. Now your job is to provide as much evidence as possible to get them into real dialogue where you can figure out whether you're just one of many or they're actually interested in recruiting you. What happens if a coach responds to your email saying that he wants to hop on a phone call but hasn't called in 5 days? So it kind of depends on how you responded to him saying that you wanted to hop on a call. Did you just leave it open ended? Did you give him times? Did you, right? You never just want to like leave it open ended, like, all right, coach, I'll wait for your call. That's a terrible idea. They're totally going to forget about that, right? You need to actually give them times for this stuff. You need to make the next step as easy as possible for them. So it kind of, the answer to this question kind of depends on how you responded to that. But if they haven't called in 5 days, it's also very normal in the recruiting process. Coaches will say, you might even have a time set up with a coach and then they ghost you on that time. It doesn't mean they're not interested anymore. It doesn't mean they changed their mind. It's called life. It's called recruiting. You just have to be able to continue that process with them so that you can get them to the point where you actually get on a call. You might have to schedule 3 different calls with them to actually get them on the phone, right? That's normal. Like that's okay. But what's not okay is just assuming, all right, they said they'll call, so I guess they'll call. Bad plan. Like probably not going to happen. Probably going to forget about you. Can't have that happen, right? Okay. How about you're a high level recruitable player, but also excel at a vigorous sport like wrestling? Send them video in the offseason showing athleticism or wait and stick to lacrosse video. So I think I talked about this a little bit last week, which is that if your kid plays multiple sports, whether you send video of the second sport or not depends on the 2 sports that you play. And the example that I gave was if your kid plays, lacrosse. Let's use your example. Your kid plays lacrosse, but they're also a wrestler. Should you send wrestling video? Yes, because it shows strength, athleticism. It shows some good things that can translate to lacrosse. My crazy example was if your kid plays football and they also play badminton, should you send badminton video to the football coach? No, there's not really anything that's going to translate from badminton to football. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but you get the idea there, right? And the idea is you should only send video of the other sport if the athleticism, the strength, the skills translate to your primary sport. The other thing I'll say about multiple sports is, and I don't get this vibe from you. You say it looks like you're trying to get recruited for lacrosse, but for anybody trying to get recruited for multiple sports, just understand it's going to be harder. If you have 2 sports that you're getting recruited for or want to get recruited for, you're going to split your attention to both of those. So 50% of your time is going to go to one, 50% to another, or 80-20, whatever it is. But the point is that in neither of those sports are you spending 100% of your time, money, and attention. And so in some ways it's like, take it with a grain of salt, but like kind of arrogant because you're like, I can spend 70% of my time in this sport and still think that I can beat people who are spending 100% of my time on this sport. Probably not going to happen. Like probably not going to happen. So for most people, I recommend if you want to play multiple sports, awesome. Totally fine. It's probably the last time in your life you're going to be able to do that. Awesome. Do it. Let your kid do that. Totally fine. But I'm usually, unless the kid is an absolute phenom, I'm usually very against someone trying to get recruited for 2 sports at the same time. Think it's very, very difficult and very unlikely. As a sophomore baseball player, sending initial email to coaches, do you email the head coach and CC the assistant coaches and recruiting coordinator? Email each coach separately. Email each coach separately. Do not CC coaches on the same email. Okay. This is one of the things we're going to talk about, but much more in depth at the email workshop on January 20th. So if you want to come, tickets are $99. It's really not that expensive. D1scholarship.com/email workshop. You can come. But the point is that you should not be emailing the coaches on one email. You shouldn't be CCing them. You need to send individual emails. There's a number of reasons for this. First and foremost, if you CC coaches on the same email, you are more likely to go to spam. So they're not even going to see your email, or it's less likely that they will. The second thing is that you can't personalize the email to that coach. You can say, hey, coach, Lewis Johnson, but it's just not the same. Okay. And then the third thing is, you guys ever seen those memes, like the Western memes, where you got all the guys that are like pointing guns at each other, and it's like, who's going to jump first? When you see multiple coaches on the same email, it's kind of like that. It's like, who's going to take over this one and respond? And then nobody ends up doing that. And then you end up not getting a response and not getting on their radar or something like that. You don't want that. So don't CC multiple coaches on the same email. You're less likely to get responses. And again, we're going to talk. And so you should email. I should also say this: multiple coaches on staff. Don't just email one, email more than one. We'll typically contact anywhere from 3 to 5 of them. Right. But so you should be contacting multiple coaches on staff, but they should each get their own individual email. And again, we're hosting that email workshop on January 20th. If you're interested, d1scholarship.com/workshop. How exactly do you continue a conversation with a camp after they've given you a camp invite to make sure that it's not just a generic camp invite? I assume you mean with a coach after they've given you a camp invite. Keep in mind, there's 2 things when you're trying to decide, is a camp invite generic or not? There's 2 things that you're looking for. Okay. You're looking for meaningful communication and you're looking for frequent communication. Now, you're not always going to get both of those things, but if you have at least one of them, it's probably worth your time and money. If you have both of them, it's definitely worth your time and money. So here's what I mean by that. Meaningful communication means that they are saying things that give you an indication they are genuinely interested. Like, can you send me your schedule so I can come see you play? Like, can you keep me updated with new video as you get it? Like, can you give me your coach's contact information so I can call them? Those would be meaningful things that are saying, hey, I'm actually interested in this player. I'm not just interested in taking your money and having you come to our camp. Okay. So you're looking for meaningful communication. The second thing you're looking for is frequent communication. So frequent communication is you're getting multiple responses from a coach. Now, this is always tricky. Okay. Because you don't need frequent communication for a camp to be worth it. What I'm saying is, if you get it, then it's likely that that event is worth it for you. That's what I'm saying. So if a coach is messaging you once a month, if a coach is messaging you every week or every other week or something like that, that is frequent enough communication for you to go, this coach is probably genuinely interested. Now, again, even if they're not messaging you frequently, if they give you meaningful communication, then it could still be worth it for you to go. And if you get both of those things, if you get meaningful and frequent communication, then that is almost certainly worth your time to go to that school. We had a family on office hours. When was that? Last night, I think. Who was saying things like, hey, send me your schedule. We have a camp coming up, but if you can't make the camp, send me your schedule and we'll try to come watch you. That is somebody who is legitimately interested. They're saying, like, even if you can't come to our camp, that's okay. We still want to come watch you. Somebody who is legitimately interested, right? So there's little things that coaches will tell you that will sort of be telltales that they don't just care about your money, but they actually want to help you and they actually want to recruit you. Who should send the emails to the coaches, the athlete or the parent? I have a very strong take on this, and anybody that knows me knows what's about to come. And that is that the parent can send the emails, but it should always come from the athlete's email address. So your athlete does not need to sit down and go send 100 emails to college coaches. In fact, I'm going to bet that they're not going to do it. In fact, I'm going to bet that you're setting them up for failure if you expect them to. So you as the parent, it is 100% okay for you to send emails on behalf of your kid. And anybody that says that's not the case, anybody that says if your kid wants it, they'll do the work, those people are completely out of touch with the current state of college recruiting. You are not coddling your kid. You are not spoiling your kid by helping them. They have a big goal. You are leading them. You are showing them what it looks like to go after a big, hard goal. Please help your kids. But that said, don't send from your parental email address. Coaches don't want to hear from parents, right? They don't want to hear from parents. So send from your kid's email account, your kid's Twitter account, your kid's Instagram account. Send like it's coming from your kid, but you as the parent are the one pressing send. Totally acceptable, totally normal. We had a live stream on Friday. One of our families was in here and they got like over $1 million worth of scholarships and it was great. That dad was in here and he was saying, please don't leave it up to your kid. Please don't. And just to give you some context, guys, like we've had hundreds of athletes that we've worked with hands-on. Okay. Like hundreds of athletes. We have had valedictorians, very competent kids, very with it. You know what I mean? Like kids who you would think this athlete will be able to handle this, and they can't. Okay. It's too much. They wake up, they go to class for 6 hours, they go to practice for a few hours, then they have weight training or speed training, or they have a lesson, then they have homework, they're studying for tests, they have chores around the house, they have family obligations, they're hanging out with friends. And in that, we haven't even talked about recruiting at all. We haven't talked about making videos, sending emails, sending DMs, posting on social media, following up with coaches, going to showcases and camps, taking phone calls, going on visits. Like we haven't talked about literally any of that recruiting stuff. Really? You're going to put that on a 16-year-old? It's just not going to work out well. And so don't feel bad. Don't feel shamed as a parent, when they're like, oh, you shouldn't be doing the work. Like those people are so out of touch with recruiting. In fact, like D1 scholarship families that we work with, 98% of the time we work with parents. Like it's honestly like what we do is really for parents, not even for kids. And the 2% where it's for the kid are really difficult. And we have to work really hard to try to help that because it's really not for kids. And this process is really not for kids. It's for parents. Let the kid study for tests and get good grades. Let the kid improve at their sport, play their games. Like that is the kid's responsibility. The kid should have responsibility in the process, 100%. But the marketing piece of it, a lot of that should fall on the parents' shoulders. Coach following on X, how serious is that? Depends on what you do with it. If they just follow you and you don't do anything else with that, then not that serious. Clicking a button, right? But following a kid is also not nothing, right? If a coach looks at a kid's video and thinks, I'm never going to recruit that kid, would they follow them? Probably not, right? They're only following kids that there is some possibility, 1% possibility at least, that they might recruit them, right? Maybe. And so the follow is not nothing. It's an indication that there's something there, but now you need to take that relationship to the next level. You need to take the follow and say, how can we turn it into a DM conversation? We just had a family on office hours. I don't know if that was last night, but he was talking about how they had some coaches follow them. We were able to turn that into a conversation and then actually turned it into an official visit pretty quickly. But that was a senior, so that stuff happens faster. But the point is, like, you need to be able to take that to the next level. The follow itself doesn't mean a ton, but it also doesn't mean nothing. It's just the first step. I call this the hierarchy of interest. And the hierarchy of interest is that you essentially want to ascend coaches up the hierarchy of interest because they're not all the same. Getting a follow on social media is not the same as getting a positive DM or email response. That would be a higher level of interest, right? But that's also not the same thing as a phone call or a text conversation. That would be a higher level of interest, which is also not the same as going on a visit to the school. Right? That would be a higher level of interest, which is not the same as getting an offer. That'd be like the highest level of interest, right? And so the point is that you want to ascend coaches through the hierarchy of interest. Just because a coach is at the bottom of that hierarchy doesn't mean that they'll never be at the top of it. It just means that you have to intentionally move them up the hierarchy, right? That's all that means. So the Twitter follow means something. It's not nothing, but it really depends on what you do with it. My son is a golfer, class of 28. With regards to camps, he has been invited to elite camps that cost $200, but was invited by a head coach to a camp that costs over $1,000. Is that worth it? So good question. Here's my answer. And this is really, this applies to any showcases and camps. Okay. So we have like we're going to run a workshop, by the way, on showcases and camps, probably in the next month or two. And so that alone, the tickets will be $99 and it'll easily save you from spending $1,000 on something that won't help. Here's the thing, that $1,000 event might be worth it. It might be. My first question to you is, what has the dialogue with that coach looked like? Did you send him an email and he just shot you back an invite to a camp for $1,000? Or has there been ongoing conversation? How frequently have they been conversing with you? Has that conversation been meaningful? Have you had any phone calls with that coach? Have they said anything like, hey, send us the upcoming events that you're going to be at? Or have they said, keep us updated with video? Have you spoken to any other coaches that are on staff there? So like, I would have multiple follow-up questions about that event before I say it's worth it or not worth it. Just by the information that you give, I don't know. right? You can't just say, oh, because it's this amount of money, it's worth it. Because it's this amount of money, it's not worth it. No, right? So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll build relationships with college coaches, and then we go to the events for the coaches that we're already talking to. So when we show up and there's 100 kids there, right? Guess who they're watching? Our kids. That's who they're watching. They're watching our kids. And so you should be doing the same thing. And so you say class of 2028, and you say he's a golfer. Okay. And so is it worth it? Right off the bat, if you gave me no more information, I'd say no. Don't just go spend $1,000 on a weekend without knowing if the ROI has a high chance of playing out or not. Really, it depends on how meaningful is the communication, how frequent is the communication. Do we have any tells that this is going to be worth it for you or not, right? That's really what this is about. Should you email the coach through your email or send one through Sports Recruits? I have data on this. Okay. And so, because this is a big thing, we get a lot of families who have used Sports Recruits. A lot of clubs will give their athletes Sports Recruits through the club, right? So you get it for free because of your club, and your club is with it, like that kind of thing. Cool. And so we have a lot of athletes who have done that. Here's what we found. You are significantly more likely to end up in the spam folder if you go through Sports Recruits. You are significantly more likely to get an automated generic campus invite if you go through Sports Recruits. And we have had families completely get a very different response to emails by simply sending through their personal Gmail or something like that. Okay. So personally, I'm not sending through Sports Recruits. A lot of our athletes have it. We could go get that if we wanted to. Not going to do it. We've seen athletes get worse results. That said, there are always exceptions. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and be like, nobody can get responses through Sports Recruits. No, that's ridiculous. Like, of course, there's people who can get responses through Sports Recruits. But if you said, what is the highest probability that I'm going to get the maximum amount of responses? I'd say you're sending through a personal Gmail account. That's what I would say. And then if you want to take it a step further, and this is, I'm not going to go too deep on this, but you'll get people who are like, no, if you want to really land in the primary folder, then you need a custom domain. It needs to be sent. You need to warm up the domain. You need all your DNS servers properly set up. Like, trust me, I can go hang with the best of them in terms of cold email. I've sent a bajillion of them. Okay. For business and recruiting, we used to do this. We used to. If you came to us like 2 years ago in recruiting, we would set you up with a custom domain like jackkruger.com. And then we would create an email address for you, like jack@jackkruger.com. And then we would send from that email address. Why? Because I thought that we would get better open rates by having a custom domain, and people will tell you that. That's not true in recruiting. Okay. Open rates have been completely fine on something like a Gmail account. And in fact, in a lot of cases, higher in Gmail accounts than a custom domain. Custom domain email sending becomes critical when you're going to send 5,000 a day, 10,000 a day. If you're in a different industry where like B2B businesses are doing that, then you need to send from a custom domain. In recruiting, that's not happening. You're sending, 20 a day, 40 a day, something like that. A personal Gmail is completely fine. I recommend that over Sports Recruits, over Field Level, insert recruiting platform here. Doesn't matter. Really haven't seen anything beat personal email. And again, if you want to learn more of our email tips and tricks, and you want to actually get the strategies behind like everything that we do to generate emails, we've sent more than 1 million of them. And that's not like exaggeration, like more than 1 million. No, like literally more than 1 million emails. Come to the email workshop on January 20th, d1scholarship.com/email workshop. Tickets are $99. We got early bird pricing right now. Great time. We'll show you everything you need to know about emailing college coaches. I've noticed a lot of the lacrosse players' Instagram are strictly videos of clips of plays. Yep. So there's a couple things. One of the questions that we'll often get, Amy, and I don't know if this is where you're going with this or not, but one of the questions that we'll often get is, does my kid need a personal social media account and a social media account just for sports? Like, do they need a personal Instagram account and then one just for lacrosse or one just for baseball? And here's how we answer that. If your kid is willing to post clips of their sport on their personal account, you can use your personal account. Totally fine. Okay. But they have to be willing to post that stuff. And a lot of kids are uncomfortable with that. So a lot of kids will not, again, we've worked with a lot of families. We know this. There's a lot of kids who are like, my friends are following me on that account. I feel weird posting, my clips on that account. It feels like I'm in the spotlight. It feels braggy. It feels showboaty. If that's the case, totally fine. Leave the kid's personal account alone, and you can create a second account strictly for their sport where they just post those videos. Totally fine. So the answer is, if they're okay with posting on a personal account, totally fine. It's okay that your family vacation photos are on there. Totally fine, as long as they're willing to post sport videos on there, because you need content. If they're not willing to do that, okay, just create a second account. It's just for their sport. None of their friends are following on there. And then you can use that account for their sport. Does that make sense? When should we pay for the NCAA number? I would really say like sooner rather than later, just because you're gonna have to pay for it at some point. And it's just easier if you get it done sooner rather than later. Some of the recruiting questionnaires will ask for your NCAA number. And so if you have that, sooner rather than later. You're going to have to get it at some point. So the sooner that you do that, the better. I've had some families say it can take a little bit. Like sometimes it takes a couple months for that number to actually come through. So the sooner that you do that, the better. Should kids manage their own sports Instagram page? Is it valuable to post short videos of games? So first question, should kids manage their own sports Instagram page? In general, my answer to this is no. I think most kids are going to struggle to do that. It's just a lot of work. Really, if you want to do it like a team effort with your kid, that's cool too. Like you help edit some of the videos and your kid posts it because maybe they're a little bit more tech savvy than you are. Then that's totally fine, right? But I think this idea that your kid is going to go post a ton of social media content on top of their workload in regular life already, I think is ludicrous. And I just think that's probably not going to happen. So should kids manage their own sports Instagram page? You as the parent should definitely be overseeing that. If not, posting the content for them. And then is it valuable to post short videos of games? Yeah, it's not just valuable, it's critical. It's one of the most important things that you can do. So keep in mind, you have the different methods of exposure. You can outreach to college coaches, emails and DMs. You can post content on social media. You can have coach connections. You can go to showcases and camps. These would all be different ways of getting exposure in the college recruiting process. And posting content is an absolutely critical one. Now, also depends on your sport a little bit. Some sports are more social media heavy than others, as we saw in the recruiting trends report. But that's the idea, right? The idea is that the more content that you have posted, the more coaches can see it, the more coaches you'll get interested. That's all a really good thing. So highly recommend doing that. Okay. Yeah, so Amy had sort of like a follow-up question with the last one, which was about social media, and she sees players posting just lacrosse clips. And so she says, do coaches look for more than that in order to evaluate these kids as a whole? And so the answer is yes, they will look at more than that, but one, it might not necessarily come from social media. That extracurricular stuff that they're going to look at will come from phone calls. It'll come from your visit when you're in person with them. That's how they're going to get a major read. But they will also look at other stuff on social media, totally. But the biggest thing is that they are going to prioritize evaluating talent and academics over everything else in the beginning. Meaning in the beginning, they don't care about your kid's personality. They don't care about their selflessness or their extracurricular activities, or they don't care about that stuff in the beginning. They're just trying to figure out, is this player even close to being able to play at my school? And do they have grades in the ballpark of being able to play here? If the answer to those questions is yes, then they're going to start looking at the player as a whole. And this is one of those things that I sent an email out to our email list today about information overload. Information overload is when a family will contact a school and they will include every piece of information about the kid that they possibly can. It's like, here's some background information on me. Here's my life story. Here's my video. Here's my stats. Here are my transcripts. Here's my coach contact information. Here's my recruiting profile. And they just like overwhelm the coach with information. And that tanks your responses. This is, again, one of the things that we're going to talk about at the email workshop on January 20th. D1scholarship.com/email workshop. Come hang out, because we will show you other things like information overload. That's just one of a few mistakes that people will often make. And so providing too much information at one time is a problem. And so in the beginning, the focus should be on things like video and stats and grades and those types of things. Over time, they will want to get to know your kid better. So Amy, if you really want to get granular about this, when you get to the end of the process and a coach is deciding between 2 or 3 players and trying to decide which one do I give an offer to and which one do I not, those players are probably going to be roughly equally talented at that point. And the grades are going to be roughly equally the same. And so then it's like, well, what separates those players? That's when all of this extracurricular stuff separates the players. What is their demeanor like? What's their attitude like? Are they going to fit in with the culture here? I'm going to spend a lot of time with them as a coach. Like, do I want to spend time with them? Do I like this player? All of those things are really going to be the differentiator at the end of the process. Once talent is roughly equal, academics are roughly equal. And hopefully, Amy, that answers your question. After receiving an offer, how soon should you respond with a yes or a no? So that kind of depends on a lot of factors. Okay, so that's not an easy, within 3 days you should have an answer. It doesn't work like that. Okay. It depends on how old you are. It depends on, are you early or late in the process? How interested are you in the school? How many other schools are you talking to? How many other offers do you have? What has the coach told you in terms of their timeline? How interested are they? Like, there's a million different questions that we would have to dive into there to really figure out how much time you have. Okay. One thing that I do want to caution people about, though, is when you're given an offer and they don't give you a deadline, keep in mind that that is not an unlimited offer, meaning it's not going to exist in perpetuity. At some point, and they may not even tell you when, at some point, that offer is no longer committable. And we just had a family actually where this was recently the case. Very talented kid. Okay. And they had like 10 offers, right? So they had 10 offers. This is without us, just on their own. Kid was really talented. And so he had 10 offers and he just kind of assumed that those were going to be there for forever, and waited months and months and months. And then when it came time, and because he was trying to generate more interest and it didn't come, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go back to the schools that gave me an offer. I'm going to accept one of those. Well, when he tried to do that, the school that he tried to accept it from, offer no longer valid. They're like, sorry, we already committed all our whole, whatever we were looking for. They never told him. They never said, hey, offers off the table. They never said, hey, you have until Friday. They didn't say any of that. They just pulled the offer behind the scenes. And so just because you have an offer today does not mean that that offer is going to exist forever. And so don't wait on schools if you have offers that you like. When you start to get offers and you have 3 of them, you have 5 of them, you have 10 of them, you really need to start thinking about moving and leveraging those offers now, not waiting 3 months or 5 months to do something with that. It's probably too long. So again, I can't answer the question directly. There's just more nuance to it. As much as I'd love to give you black and white, hey, 3 days, 3 weeks, it just doesn't work like that. There are a lot of other factors at play. And that's one of the reasons that the end of the process is trickier than the beginning of the process, right? You have families who have generated a lot of interest and a lot of offers, and they're in great shape until they're not. And they get to the end of the process and it's like, shoot, why is this hard? I thought this was going to be easy at this point. That's when one sentence can get an offer revoked. Mishandling one school can get an offer revoked. So really critical that you handle that piece correctly. How long should a company I'm paying take to make a highlight reel? It depends. It depends on the highlight reel. My first advice would be like, if you haven't paid them yet, don't pay them because you're going to want something different than just a singular highlight reel. Like a lot of the families that we work with, we end up taking their highlight reels and then splitting them all up. So we'd literally be like undoing what it is that you're paying somebody else to do. But like we'll build like a full YouTube channel with 30 videos in about 14 days. But that includes some buffer time. That includes some other things as well. But if it's a singular highlight reel, I mean, like you can make a singular highlight reel in like a couple hours. Like that's just not, but I also don't recommend using a singular highlight reel. So I'm trying to answer your question and at the same time give you a little bit of guidance as to like, you're going to need more than a singular highlight reel, but a single highlight reel just shouldn't take that long. It's a single highlight reel. Okay. Oh. Let's see. What are we looking at? And he says, already paid them. We have every touch videos, but we have a full season, 20 games included. Yeah. 200 emails with an old highlight reel. Why are you using an old highlight reel? I don't know. I wouldn't use something old. So for people who are wondering, like, well, how old is old video? Like, how far back can I go? The black and white answer is I definitely wouldn't use video that's older than a year, unless there's an extenuating circumstance, like an extenuating circumstance, and what an extenuating circumstance would be like an injury. So if you got injured and you're out for a year, then you got to use what you have, and you might use video that's older than a year. If that's not the case, you should never use video that's old. Goodness gracious, speak English, Jack. You should never use video that's older than a year. And I also, it should really be within 6 months if possible. Now, it depends on the sport that your kid plays. Because, for instance, if they play football, it might be difficult because there's a year and there's not really a lot of club. You might be playing 7-on-7 or something like that. But in terms of like game video for football, it's a year apart because you play in the fall and that's kind of it. But if your kid plays a sport where there's like some sort of, if it's soccer or baseball and there's club going on in high school and all these other things, then then the video should really never be more than 6 months old. And ideally within 3 months. Here's what I'll also tell you, Will, I believe is your name. But I believe your name is Will. So the other thing I'll tell you, Will, is that the newer your video is and the fresher it is, the more trustworthy and powerful it is. And so let me give you an example right now. So if I had told you, hey, yeah, we help a lot of people get scholarships. It's really great. We're really good at it. The last one that we have is from a year and a half ago. You would instantly have red flags. You'd be like, hold on. So you haven't helped anybody get a scholarship in the last year and a half? That's outdated. The process is very different now than it was then. You would be like, there's a problem there, right? But when I show you a testimonial from somebody that sent me a message last night, you're like, hold on, those people are getting results right now. So while I'm over here struggling through the process and having tearful conversations with my spouse or my kid, there's other people who are just getting interest in offers, and that's happening right now. That's a lot more powerful, right? Same thing is true with your recruiting video. If you send a video from a year and a half ago, then coaches are going to go, that's not representative of the player today. They're probably a lot bigger, faster, stronger, more skilled. Like, do you have video from yesterday? And then when you send them a video and you're like, hey, coach, I did this amazing thing. It happened yesterday. Then that is so much more powerful. They're like, oh, this happened just yesterday. And this is why you can't just get video once and then be done. You need continual video because video is only as powerful as recent as it is. And so again, there are extenuating circumstances, and I understand that. And I always want to have nuance. Like it might be that you don't have access to new video for whatever reason. Understandable. Okay. But if you do, You need the most recent video that you can possibly get. That's going to be valuable for you. How often should my 2029 grad post on Instagram? Not that often. Like, if they don't post this week, don't go get mad at them. Okay. Them posting on Instagram as a 2029, which would be a freshman, you're early still. Okay. Is it a good idea for them to post? Yes. And the reason it's a good idea for them to post is to flex the muscle. I was talking to one of our families about this the other day, and the analogy that I used was lifting weights. If I went in the gym and I hadn't worked out in a year and I said, I'm just going to get under the bar and I'm going to bench press 315, probably not going to go well. Probably not going to go well. But if I'm in the gym for 6 months and I'm ramping up and I'm flexing those muscles and I'm building strength over time, then that's a totally reasonable goal. It's the same thing when you get to college recruiting and you get to just before junior year or just after junior year, right? And you decide now it's time to ramp it up and just get a lot of exposure and really hit this thing hard. That is your equivalent of benching 315. And if you've never sent a message to a coach before, if they've never posted on social media, if they've never done any of that, the odds that they're just going to be able to ramp up dramatically at that point are virtually zero, right? And so for freshmen, they don't need to post every single day or every single week to market themselves to college coaches. You're still early, okay? It's a good idea for you to do it, but not because of exposure. It's a good idea for them to do it so they flex the muscles. So when it's time to post consistently, they know what's included. They know the process. They know how long it takes them. They know what they're posting, all of those good things. So as a 2029, I would say, I don't know, a couple times a month is probably totally fine for a 2029. As you get deeper into freshman year and closer to sophomore year, that number should probably increase. Soccer. Yep. So in soccer, you should pretty much never have video that's older than 6 months, as long as your kid is healthy. You're playing enough that should be the case. You should always have video that's within 6 months. How important is a highlight reel versus individual highlights on an Instagram page? So there's a couple questions that are baked in there, which is highlight reel versus individual highlights. And then you put the caveat of, but specifically on Instagram, which would be handled differently than other platforms, right? So keep in mind that the answer to this, I'll try to add some nuance, but depends on the platform, depends on the sport, depends on a lot of different depends. The answer is that you should have both, okay? And depending on the sport that you play, looks like you play hockey, but depends on the sport that you play, because in an ideal world, you need 3 types of video: bait, hook, and due diligence. Okay. Bait videos are short, 10 to 30 seconds. They show one play and they're quick. Coaches who don't know who you are probably not going to watch a 5-minute highlight video because they get hundreds of them. They don't have enough time to watch that for everybody, but they'll watch a 10 to 30-second video. So you use bait video to attract college coaches. And then once they're like, oh, wait, this player's video is actually good, and now they're much more likely to watch a 3-minute highlight video, which we would use, and we call that a hook video. Okay. Now that's getting a coach hooked on your kid and okay, we need to watch this kid. We need to be interested in this kid. That's a different kind of video, right? And then the final is due diligence. This isn't going to be used in every single sport, but some sports coaches will want to see full game video. Someone was asking about soccer video. Soccer is one of those sports. Coaches will ask for, can you send me a full half with no video editing? Can you send me a full game? Because they want to see off-ball movement. They want to see how your kid moves on the field. There are a couple other sports where that's the case. Basketball is the case. Lacrosse is that case. So there's some other sports where they're going to want to see due diligence videos, long highlight videos. That's going to be a big deal. So keep in mind that there's just different types of video. You want all of them. Everybody preaches hook videos, which is the 3-minute highlight videos. And that's an important piece, but you're missing other important pieces if you only have that. You guys are asking some great questions. Do you work with soccer players? Yup, lots of soccer players. Lots of soccer players. He's a junior, missed a lot of time. Lots of soccer players. The most recent testimonial that I just posted on Instagram, if you want to go watch it, 146K. That was a D1 soccer athlete. If you want to go watch that, we have lots of soccer athletes. We have full testimonial interviews, like 20-minute interviews that you can go see on our website with soccer families as well. So it doesn't really matter, men's, women's. We've had both and had a lot of them. 27 graduates should post at least once a week for basketball season. Yeah, definitely. And while you're in basketball season, which is right now, you likely have a lot of content because they're playing frequently, when you might have less content in like the fall, for instance. Even if they're playing fall ball, they might not have as much content. When you're in regular season or playing AAU or something like that, you're going to have a lot more content. Ideally, you're posting at least twice a week. Of course, it depends on the family, depends on what they're able to do. But during basketball season, at least once a week and twice a week or more is ideal for sure. Great info. Thank you. You're welcome. Can you DM me for a call? I can't. We have a bajillion DMs, but if you just go to our site, go to Accelerator at the top, and you'll be able to schedule a call on that page. You'll also get more information on like what it is that we actually do. So it's something that you might be interested in because maybe we don't offer what you're looking for. So if you just go to the link in the Instagram bio, go to Accelerator at the top, you can schedule a call with us at your convenience. And for those who aren't ready for that, because like that's obviously very in-depth and there's a lot to that. Again, we're hosting a workshop on January 20th. If you just want to know all our email secrets, these are the things that we don't talk about on social media that you really can't get anywhere else. And we're going to show you some data that we have that nobody else kind of has around email and what you should do. So if you want to come see that, come to the workshop. It's a $99 ticket. You get the recording of it, d1scholarship.com/workshop. It's a no-brainer. We might be able to save you hundreds or thousands of dollars on showcases and camps that you don't need to go to. Is it all animated or do we talk to you? I don't know what that means. You'll talk to somebody on my team. You won't talk to me, but you'll talk to somebody on my team. And they'll answer all your questions and make sure it's actually a good idea for you. But no, it's not animated. If we're going to ask you for a good bit of information or a good bit of money, like we're going to talk to you about it. And plus, we don't just want to let anybody in on that. We want to make sure we can actually help people. So that's another reason that we make people have calls for that. For an email workshop, anybody can buy that. No problem. Hi, Jack. Hey, Patty. How do you suggest you re-engage after an injury and now back at it with playing in video? So it depends a little bit on what you were doing while the athlete was injured. Because if the answer is nothing, then you're kind of starting from scratch. And that's going to require a different strategy than if you had been communicating with coaches throughout that process, right? Throughout being injured. So again, it depends. If you guys hear me, I say it depends a lot. It does because it's nuanced. And anybody that's giving you recruiting advice that is an ultimatum or saying this is always how it's done is probably trying to sell you something or just doesn't understand the nuance of recruiting. It's going to be an it depends situation. So re-engaging after injury, now back at it with playing in video. You got to get as much video as you possibly can now. If you had been communicating with coaches while you're injured, then that is actually a very seamless transition because you're like, hey, coach, I'm back at it. Here's some fresh video. That's perfect. If you haven't been engaging, then you have to start from scratch and you're reintroducing the player entirely to those coaches. And you have to kind of treat it like you never had any interest with, any communication with them at all. And if you weren't talking to schools prior, then the injury almost doesn't even matter. You're just starting from square one like anybody else would. So again, Patty, I'd love to give you more like specific advice, but it kind of just depends on what you've been doing, what your plans are for the next 3 to 4 months in terms of playing, the video that you have, the video that you think you'll have, all of those types of things, how old the athlete is, the sport, like all those types of things are going to matter, right? Where to post those clips, Instagram, depends on the sport, right? So some sports have a heavier emphasis on some social media platforms than others. So it's not always going to be Instagram. It's not always going to be Twitter. It's not always going to be, YouTube. But I will say it is always going to be YouTube. We use YouTube as like our hub for video. It's free. Everybody knows how to use it. College coaches know how to use it. We can organize the channel. There's a lot of the link sharing is really easy. Like there's a lot of really good things about YouTube. So every sport, every player will be on YouTube. In terms of posting content on social media, that is sport dependent. And it depends on where coaches are going to hang out, right? How do coaches find players on social media? Should your players' profiles be public? Isn't valuable for a seventh grader to start an Instagram page. It's valuable again for a seventh grader to start an Instagram page to start flexing the muscles. But again, you're not going to go, coaches are not recruiting seventh graders right now. Okay. No matter what you hear, they're not doing that. So you're not doing it for exposure reasons. If you want to post as a seventh grader because you want them to start flexing the muscle of what that feels like, cool. If you want to do it because they have fun doing that, cool. Like that's great too. But I wouldn't be doing it for, I wouldn't be doing it for anything else. It's just too early for you. And I'm really big, guys. If you understand, I'm really big on not selling somebody something they don't need at this time. You're seventh grade, like I'm not going to go try to sell you on something. The workshops are inexpensive, and most people that are in high school, those would be valuable for. But in terms of like the heavy duty stuff that we do, we don't even take freshmen, to give you an idea, because it's just not, we can't help you that early. And I'm not big on taking people's money for no reason. So the workshops are good for anybody in high school. And even if you're in middle school and you just want to come learn, I guess, but please don't feel like you need to. You're still very early. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Oh, and you also asked a couple other questions. Let me address all of your questions. I'm not trying to skirt. Let me address all of your questions. You said, how do coaches find players on social media? There's a number of different ways. Okay. The first way is through just when you post content, the algorithms are going to show that content to people they think will like that content. So if you are following college coaches, if you've had some interaction with them on social media, you're following other people in your sport, then it's going to show those videos to people in your area, right? Which would be like your sport. So the first way is you will get, if you post enough pieces of content over a long enough time horizon, you will get people who just organically find your content. Okay. But that is a long, slow play. That is not you're going to go this weekend, make 2 posts, and all of a sudden have 20 schools barging down your door. It's just not going to work like that. But it's still a good thing to do. Following coaches on social media is another way that they're going to see your content. Following coaches is super underrated. And a lot of people think it's just clicking a button and that's it. No, there's a whole thing that you should be doing when you follow coaches on social media. And we're going to do a social media workshop at some point as well. And then the final thing is DMs to coaches, right? When you DM them and then they go look at your profile, they're going to go look at all that content. So those would be the way that coaches are finding players on social media. Also for some sports, not all sports, but some sports, there are media publications that will post about athletes. And that can be a really big deal. If your recruiting service is helping you by posting on their recruiting, account, that's not helping you. Okay. Please don't pay for that. That's not going to help you. But there are some trusted sources that will post about players in certain sports. Those can be valuable for getting found on social media as well. And then you ask, should your player's profile be public? 1,000% yes. If the profile's private, nobody can see the content, and coaches are not going to click request follow on a player that they're just not going to do that. So your profiles do need to be public. That it should be that case on your YouTube channels. It should be that case on any social media platform. The profile needs to be public. Thank you so much for that information. We'll be scheduling a call and attending the workshop. Awesome. Looking forward to seeing you at the workshop. By the way, if you're wondering what workshop they're talking about, January 20th, we're hosting an email 101 workshop, d1scholarship.com/email workshop. Tickets right now are $99. The tickets will go up, but right now we have early bird pricing. It's a nice discount. So come. We're just going to show you everything we know about email. And it's just not that expensive. Thank you for your time and response. The current situation is horrible. And once our son has picked a school, I can't wait to expose those people for fraud. Goodness gracious. There's got to be a story behind that one. There's got to be a huge story behind that one. I'm sorry that happened to you. There are, listen, there's bad actors out there. When people know how much parents care about their kids and how much money they're willing to spend on them, there's going to be people who are going to do that. They're going to take advantage of families. So keep both eyes open. At all times. If something sounds too good to be true, it is. How to get NIL money coming out of JUCO? I would need a lot more information about that. What level schools are we talking about here? What sport is this? Some sports are going to have more money than others. There's a lot that kind of goes into that question. But NIL money typically comes after they've already evaluated you athletically, evaluated you academically. It's going to take a bit, right? So keep that in mind. I'm grade 8 playing at the highest level soccer. Do you have any tips for getting a scholarship? Nah, I don't have any of those. No, I mean, like everything that I've been talking about is that, right? And so you're in grade 8 right now. Enjoy it. Okay. You're still early. You're not going to go get a scholarship next month. Like, enjoy the game. Okay. You'll have plenty of time to do all the not fun stuff like getting recruited. You'll have plenty of time for that later. Okay. So you don't need to rush that process. Enjoy the game for now. When you get to high school, go watch all of our Instagram content. Go watch all of our YouTube content. Go read all of our tweets on Twitter. All that stuff is free. All that stuff is free, and it'll put you in a better situation than you would be otherwise. How do you reconnect with the coach that started recruiting you but haven't had a conversation with each other in over a month? That's not uncommon. So just because you haven't had a conversation with a coach in over a month does not mean that they're not interested anymore. That's the number one thing you need to know. Okay. So just because they haven't communicated with you in over a month does not mean they're not interested anymore. This is really important for a lot of people to understand. Super important for people to understand. We have had players get ghosted for 3 months and then get an offer. We've had players get ghosted for 6 months and get an offer. We've had players get ghosted for 9+ months, and then coaches come out of the woodwork and say, here's an offer. Okay. The key though, if you're like, yeah, but how does that happen? Is it luck? It's not luck. Okay. I should say it's not just luck. Recruiting in general requires some luck, but all of those families stayed consistent with communicating with those coaches. All of them did. And so even when it seems like a coach has dropped off, you should be continuing to communicate with those coaches and give them more evidence that your kid is good. For some of those situations that I mentioned where we've had coaches ghost a kid for 5 months and then pop up and give them an offer, typically that message looks like this. Hey, thank you so much for the updates that you've been sending. It's been incredibly helpful, and we've been watching them the whole time. We're ready to start our class for this, and we'd love to have you on campus. We think that you would be a great addition here. That's what they look like. They're thanking us for all of the updates that happen. And this was like early last week, maybe some of you guys were here. I talked about the number one skill that you need in college recruiting in 2026. Anybody remember what it was? Converting interest into offers. The ability to take general interest and turn it into offers. The families that do that in 2026 will win. Okay. It's not just the families that generate interest. You have to be able to turn it into offers. And so just because they haven't contacted you in over a month, I personally am not scared by that. I'm not like, oh my gosh, they're not interested anymore. No, not necessarily, but you have to do the right things to continue building that relationship, even if it's one-sided for a little bit. And this is what people miss. People assume, oh, they're just not interested anymore. And then they stop messaging the coach, and then it really does fizzle out. And then the relationship really is dead. And so it's critical that you continue that communication, continue those, all of that, giving evidence. It's so important. And our families will tell you that. They will tell you that. They will say, in fact, we just had a family put in our Telegram group the other day. Same thing. Coach hadn't responded for a while, comes back. Just want to thank you so much. It's helping us for all the updates. It's helping us more than you even realize. That was the message. And people are over here thinking they're annoying college coaches. If you do it properly, you're not. You're not. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you being here. How do you determine which recruitment companies are worth it? What pitfalls, red flags to look or watch out for? Okay. I love this question. Here we go. Ready? I'm going to show you exactly what to look for because this is actually very clear. Okay. The first thing that you are looking for is a strong list of testimonials. Okay. That's the number one thing that you're looking for. And if you're like, yeah, but everybody has testimonials, not all testimonials are equal, and not all of them are the same in terms of like length or something like that. Okay. So let me give you an example. Okay. So here. Oh, shoot. I need to add this. Okay. Okay. So here's what I want to show you. This is the page, and you might not be able to see this, and don't worry. I'm not trying to sell you on this. Okay. I'm just using this as an example. Okay. I'm not trying to sell you, but let me show you. This is what you're looking for. So if I come here and I share this screen with you. Okay. This is our accelerator page. So if you're looking for like our main program, very hands-on, all those types of things. This is that page. Look at these testimonials, okay? So first of all, we have video testimonials with the families on here. These are long interviews. This is 12 minutes. This is 17 minutes. You can literally go listen to our families talk about their experiences in the programs. So we have these video testimonials. There's like 7 or 8. I can't even remember how many that aren't even on here yet. This is the other thing. Look at the quantity of testimonials. So I can just keep scrolling. Each one of these screenshots is one of them. Okay. So look at the quantity that's happening, but notice this too. Look how every single one of them has a screenshot of what the family said. It's not a typed out testimonial. It's not. It is the exact screenshot of what the family said. I can't possibly make that up. It's not fake. That is what the family said. Oh, I'm not even showing you. I'm such a loser, guys. I'm so sorry. This is what I was saying. Okay. So you'll see we have the video testimonials. This is what I was talking about. Sorry. And then these are the ones that I'm saying where we have the screenshots of all of this. Okay. So they're not just typed out. We have the actual screenshots so you can see what families are saying. It's so important. It's so important. And most services don't have a lot of proof that they're actually good. And the proof that they give you is weak and it's crappy. Go find a service that is good at what they do. And listen, if someone doesn't have testimonials like that, and I understand that now I'm kind of pitching you guys. I'm sorry. I got asked a question. I'm going to answer the question. Feel free to go work with somebody else. Totally fine. Okay. I'm not trying to do that. But the question was, how do you determine which recruitment companies are worth it? What pitfalls, red flags to look out and watch for? The number one thing is a lack of proof that they are good at what they do. The second is a lack of quality proof, not typed out testimonials that anybody could just say whatever they want. Actual proof. Actual proof. Okay. The second thing is, do they have content? Are they posting content that's free that you get value from? Okay. If you're not getting value from their free stuff, you sure as heck are not going to get value from their paid stuff. Right? Most of the families that have come into our programs is because they use the free stuff, got results, and we're like, dang, if the free stuff is helping me, I can't imagine the paid stuff. That's what's happening. Okay. So they should have content. To give you an example, again, I'm not saying you have to be here. You can go work with another recruiting company. That's totally fine. But I'm just telling you what we do is we're posting content on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I'm going live right now. We've been live for an hour and 22 minutes, right? Like whoever you're thinking about working with should be posting content and you should be getting value from their free stuff before you ever give them a single dime. If they're not doing that, you will not get value from their paid stuff ever. Okay. And then the third thing is if it sounds too good to be true, it is. These people who are saying, hey, I'm going to send all the emails for you. I'm going to make all the videos for you. You can have one-on-one calls anytime you want. The price is $2,000. You need to ask yourself, hold on, all of that for $2,000. Why? Because the reality is, if they have worked with a ton of people, there's no way they would be able to offer all of that for $2,000. The flip side of that is then if they are able to offer it for $2,000, then they aren't working with a lot of people, which means that it's a risky bet. They haven't helped that many people. They don't have a strong track record. I'm going to stop talking about this because I don't want this whole thing to be about, recruiting services and what to look for. But those are things that you should be looking for. It's why we put such a huge emphasis on posting stuff. We even have like posting all our testimonials. We have our trends report, right? Where we've analyzed all these athletes that, hey, a lot of what we do is based on data, not just our opinions on stuff. And then the final thing I'll say is likability. Like if you don't like those people and you're like, that call was weird, or man, I'm watching this guy's live stream and he just doesn't vibe with me. That's okay. We're not for everybody. Like people will watch this and just think that I'm a bozo. They don't want it. That's totally okay. Right. I'm just looking for the people that do want to work with us. And so likability is a factor too. I'm going to stop talking about this. That should be enough for you. Would a school give any priority or like a prospect baseball athlete that has a sister who is a student athlete at the same university? Not necessarily, no. No. They'll be very happy because it means that there's a higher likelihood your kid will get into the school, and they'll be very happy because they like that. They like that you're probably already sold on the school a little bit because the sibling is going there, so they won't have to pitch you as hard on their school. All of those things they'll really like, but other than that, it's not going to give you this massive advantage. Okay. Is following coaches on Instagram frowned upon before they can communicate with a potential recruit? No, that's not frowned upon. Keep in mind, you might not get a ton of follow backs and all those types of things, but you can always unfollow the coach and then refollow them at a later date, but it's not frowned upon. Should parents or kids be contacting coaches? I've answered this quite a bit, so I'm going to make it short, but like the parents can contact college coaches, but it should be through the kids' accounts. So you as the parent can write the scripts and press send on the emails, but they should come from your kid's email account or your kid's Twitter DM account or whatever it is. So that's the short version. What exactly do I need to do to spark the conversation again? Send videos, send message. Yeah. So if I remember right, this was because you were wondering, what am I sending to coaches after I get a camp invite or they show some interest or something like that? There's 9 different types of content that you should be sending to college coaches, right? You should be giving them all of the context around you or your kid that helps them evaluate whether this is worth it for them or not. That's what you're sending. So my son is a 26 grad basketball player. Just recently told the college varsity roster was full. JV is available for NAIA. Do they give scholarships on those JV? So I don't know. It depends on the school. Okay, it's not all going to be the same. If they're on JV, though, they probably have an opportunity at some point to move up to the varsity squad where they'll probably get a scholarship at that point. But it's very school dependent. Some schools have more money than others. We've had kids, for instance, on like there's one example I'm thinking of. It was a soccer player. They were offered a spot on a developmental team, so like the secondary team, which is kind of like the JV squad, and they were given a scholarship to be on that squad. So it's very school dependent. Do you specialize in all sports? I'm interested in track for my daughter who's a senior in high school. We've helped 14 different sports. So baseball, basketball, football, soccer, lacrosse, volleyball, softball, water polo, rugby, golf, tennis, hockey, track and field, women's flag football. I think I just named 14. don't put me down if I did it. But I think I just named all of them. And so, yeah, we do help with that. We've helped hundreds of athletes. And all the advice that we give is unique to each sport. So we don't use the same advice for all sports. It's unique to your sport. It's unique to your situation, all of those things. My son's a 2028. We're recruited from X by a nationally ranked travel team to join from their national team. How much does the travel team factor into recruiting? The coach has a huge X platform. So I don't care as much. Here's what I'll tell you about big travel teams, big organizations. I don't care as much about his presence on X. I don't care as much about that. I don't care as much about his Rolodex. I don't care about that. Here's what I care about when it comes to big travel teams. There's 2 things that I care about. The first thing is instant recognition in outreach messages. So for instance, if your kid plays, we've been talking about soccer. If your kid plays soccer, okay, and you're sending emails to coaches, being able to say, hey, I play for a top MLS next program is going to help you over I play play in some random other league. Okay. So the first is it does give you a little bit of a boost when you tell coaches who you're playing for and where. Okay. Is it a huge boost? No. Do you need that boost? No. Does it help? Yes, it does help. Okay. So that's the first way that it kind of helps. Here's the biggest thing that I care about. I said 2 things. One was the recognition and outreach. Here's the second thing that I really care about in terms of big teams. And that is you are likely to be playing in big tournaments where a lot of college coaches will be, meaning it's easier for coaches to see your kid play. So for instance, If your kid plays on some random team and on a weekend you go to some local event where there's 4 teams playing a round robin, the odds that college coaches are coming to that event, not good, right? Not good. And so when you tell college coach, you're emailing college coaches and they say, hey, I'm interested in you. Can you send me your schedule? And you send them a schedule of a bunch of random local events that are not really that big that they weren't planning on being at, the odds they're going to be able to come see you are significantly lower. But if you're at all of the big events that coaches were already planning on going to, then the odds that they're going to be able to see you are so much higher and you're going to get more in-person evaluation. So then when you say, hey, coach, here's my schedule, and they see big tournament, they're like, oh, great. I'm going to be able to watch this kid. I'm going to write their name down because I'm already planning on going to those events. And if you're on a bigger team, the odds that you're in those tournaments are much higher. That's why I care about bigger teams. Do you need to be on a top ranked team? No, you don't need to be. Okay. There is one kid that I'm thinking of, and soccer player, team didn't, really good soccer player. Okay. But he didn't play for MLS Next. He didn't play for ECNL. He played for some other random league. And everybody told him, he talked to some recruiting advisors and they're like, you're not getting recruited, not playing for one of those teams. You're not for one of those leagues. You're not getting recruited. And I told him, I was like, no, you can still get recruited. We just have to do some things differently. And we worked with them for a while. And the kid got, I can't remember, 8, 10 offers, over $1 million in scholarships, and committed with a $200,000 plus scholarship. Okay. And that kid sent it to one of the other coaches, recruiting advisors who was trying to sign him, and was like, hey, check this out. Like, just so you know, you can get recruited even if you don't play on those. And he was like, that's good for you. Right. And so the thing is, you don't have to be on a nationally ranked team. Does it help? Yes. Do you need it? No. But if you're not going to be on one, you need a lot of other activity going on. You need to be digitally marketing savvy. Like, you need to be sending emails to college coaches, making videos, posting on social media, doing all these other things. That's going to be absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. I hope that answers your question. I kind of went on a bit of a tangent there. I apologize for that. But yeah, that makes sense. Hopefully. So does it help you? Yes. Do you need it? No. That's the short answer. I should have just said that. But I find that parents want more, like a lot of you guys, you want more. You want to know the context behind it. Cool. Thanks. Thanks. You're welcome. What is the timeline for track recruiting, official visits, verbal commits, class of 27? Track is usually a little bit later. Usually into senior year. If the kid is really talented, then sure, like, it'll happen sooner than that. But for most athletes, it's going to happen later on, senior year, those types of things. But again, it depends on the sport, right? So for football, for instance, we still have football players getting D1 football seniors. So 2026s getting D1 offers with scholarship money. Okay. For something like lacrosse or volleyball, they recruit aggressively early. So I can tell you that for something like lacrosse, September 1st rolls around. That's your date, right? September 1st is when coaches can officially start talking to you of junior year. And 80% of D1 spots for both men and women will be filled by November 1st. So from September 1st, October 1st, November 1st, 2 months, September and October. By then, 80% of D1 spots will be filled aggressively early, right? So it depends on the sport. But for track, a little bit later. Is prep school better than junior college to get to the 4-year level? I got an offer from a prep school. They told me I'd play for them for 2 seasons. And then after, I get to transfer to Arizona State. How they're saying, see, this is what I'm talking about. Someone asked about like red flags. This is a red flag. Them saying, hey, just come here for 2 years, then you can transfer to Arizona State. They don't know that you can transfer to Arizona State. Arizona State might not want you. They might not be recruiting your position in grad class. They might not need you, right? So don't listen to people who are making promises like that. In terms of prep school or junior college, typically my answer is junior college. But remember, there's always nuance. There's not one way to do this. There's multiple ways to do this, okay? But typically, I'd say junior college. The reason junior college is because you're playing against collegiate competition. In a prep year school, it's not exactly the same. But again, it really depends, okay? It really depends. Most of the time, I'm going to say JUCO over prep school. That's typically it, okay? So ASU. Sorry, alumni here. Awesome. I don't know if you still live in Arizona. My wife is born and raised in Arizona. We go there every year, all the time. My in-laws still live there. I got lots of ties to Arizona. We lived there for a while. So hopefully that makes sense. And that answers your questions. People on YouTube, you guys got questions? Anything? People on YouTube, Twitter, any questions? We have more people on Twitter and YouTube than Instagram right now. So if you got questions, throw them down. Let's get to them. We've been doing this for an hour and a half, but I'm kind of vibing. So like if people are good and you want more of this, like ask questions. If you're done, awesome. We shut it down. No problem. Okay. In Chicago now, love the Valley though. Yeah, my sister lives in Chicago. We're there all the time. Love Chicago. Thank you so much. I took the JUCO route. Awesome. I'm glad. I hope it works out for you. It's amazing. Okay, where are we at here? It's 12:34 my time. We've been going for an hour and 35 minutes. Questions have slowed. So I'm going to finish by just mentioning one thing. Oh, all right. Will says, what role should the high school play in recruitment? Mostly academics. Yeah, mostly. It depends on the sport, though. Some sports, like football, the high school is actually pretty important because there's not really club football, like they'll have 7-on-7, but playing at a strong high school for football is a really big deal. Like that can really help you out. So high school can play a different role depending on the sport, but academics, yeah. And you know what? I talked to a family. Again, this was from one of the testimonial interviews I had last week. And one of the things that she said is people know that academics is important, but they underestimate how important it is. Did you catch that, guys? She said, people know academics are important, but they underestimate how important they are. Getting good grades is one of the single best things you can do if you want to get recruited athletically. Catch that? If you want to get recruited athletically, getting good grades is one of the best things that you can do. And this is for a number of reasons. The first reason is that it doesn't limit you in terms of the schools that you can get recruited by. If you have a 2.5 GPA, you have eliminated like 75% of schools that will be able to get you in. Like 75%. So now you take this whole pie and you say, I can't go to any of these schools except for these ones right here. And so now it's already harder for you to get interest from college coaches. That's it right here. Right? Interest from college coaches from that 25%. Whereas if you have a 4.0 GPA, every school is on the table. You're way more likely to get recruited. Okay? That's the first reason. The second reason, you want scholarship money? Get good grades. Ridiculous amount of academic money available. Ridiculous amount. We've had athletes get $200,000 academic scholarships. $200,000 just for academics. It's a really big deal. The third thing is that it'll be easier for coaches to recruit you and they'll want you more because you can get academic money. If a coach, rather than giving you 100% athletic scholarship, only has to give you 50% athletically because you qualify for 50% academically, they're more likely to recruit you. Academics are such a big deal. Please study for tests, sit in the front row, do your homework, pay attention in class, don't goof around, do the work, get good grades. It's such a big deal. This whole idea, oh, you know what, if you're an athlete, they don't care. No, you're wrong. Unless you're just this ridiculous recruit at a at a big school with not a lot of great grades, like fine. For most people, it's a really big deal. And they do care. Get good grades. Someone said yes, sir, loud and clear. I appreciate you. Awesome. Go get good grades. It'll really help you out. How are you addressing recruitment with all the transfer portal changes? Is it a strategy used prior to picking a school? Yeah. One of the issues that people have with the portal is that they're treating recruiting like it's 2015. So they read a book or went to a webinar that said contact 20 to 30 schools. Sure. In like 2010, go for it. In 2015, go for it. Not in 2026. You need to contact minimum of 100 schools for like 98% of athletes, minimum of 100 schools. In terms of video, you need way more video than you used to. Sure, 10, 15 years ago, you could have a 3-minute highlight video and that would be enough. It's not enough now. If you want to take recruiting seriously and you want to maximize opportunities, it's not enough. You need multi-platform exposure. You can't just be on one platform. You need to be on multiple platforms. The fourth thing is you need to become an expert at building relationships with college coaches yourself, turning interest into offers. Interest is actually easier to get than ever before. The problem is that coaches, because of the portal, which is what you asked about, how are you addressing recruitment with the portal changes? Okay, well, what's the portal doing? The portal is pushing timelines back. So kids who normally would have gotten recruited at the beginning of junior year are now getting recruited at the beginning of senior year or something like that. That's just an example, okay? But it's getting pushed back. So what does that mean? It means that you're in the recruiting process for longer than you used to be. It used to be that your recruiting date would hit, and then the D1s would be done within 3 months, and then you were done. For lacrosse, volleyball, still true. All these other big sports, not true anymore. You're going to be in the recruiting process for a longer period of time. And coaches, because your kid is a high schooler, view them as riskier than a college athlete, which means they want to evaluate them for longer than ever before to ensure that they really are a good player because they're riskier. Okay? So even though they're giving offers later than ever, they're recruiting athletes for a longer period of time, which means that you're going to have to learn how to build relationships with college coaches. That's why I said the number one skill to learn if you want to get recruited in 2026 is not generating interest. It is converting interest into offers. So you need more exposure. You need more evidence. You need to be on more platforms. You need to build relationships with college coaches. Those would be 4 examples of how we're addressing recruiting. And we have the data to prove it, like the data to prove that those things are important. And the people who are telling you, you're totally fine to contact 20 or 30 schools, they're setting you up for failure. And it shows that they don't know what's going on with the recruiting process right now. I had literally filmed a testimonial interview with a family last week who said, we had calls with other services and they told us to contact 20 to 30 schools. Now having gone through the process, because they committed, now having gone through the process and doing what you said instead, if we had done what they were talking about and we had contacted 20 to 30 schools, we wouldn't have gotten an offer. It's literally what that family said. You have to treat the process different now. It's like taking a knife to a gunfight. If you were in the military and you went to the Middle East when we were at war and you brought a knife, it's not going to go well, right? Because it's new times, new technology, new strategy. You can't take a 2015 recruiting strategy into 2026 and expect it to work out well for you. It's not going to. Also, let me say this, because this is my little soapbox rant for the day. So anyway, here's my soapbox rant. Anytime, this is actually a good thing for a lot of for families in recruiting. Recruiting is harder than it's ever been because of the portal, because of all that stuff, for sure. But there's actually really good things happening. First of all, there's more scholarship money than ever before, right? Our Edge family last year got an $89,000 scholarship. The average We had a lot of 100K, 150K, 200K plus. Ridiculous amount of money. That didn't used to be available 10, 15 years ago. Okay. The second thing is now you have NIL. So depending on your talent, depending on the sport that you play, there might be NIL money available. Here's the last thing. Even though recruiting is harder now than it's ever been, you have the opportunity to get a huge advantage. And here's why. Anytime you have a major transformation or change in landscape in any industry, okay, most people are not going to learn how to navigate the new way of doing things. What does that do? It creates an opportunity for the early adopters. It creates an opportunity for the people who figure it out before everybody else and have a massive advantage over those people. And the funny thing is that right now, as a family, you can actually get advantages over recruiting advisors, services, programs, and other families, because even those people don't know how to navigate the new landscape. So we have families now who think that getting recruited now is actually easier than it used to be and better than it used to be because of those reasons. I'm not saying recruiting is easy. Recruiting is never easy, okay? But that's my point. Anytime you have chaos, there will be a few people who are able to make sense of the chaos and actually benefit from it. Hopefully that answers your question. Let's see. Is NAIA schools a bad place to start if you intend on trying to transfer to another school? How does that work with eligibility? It still counts as eligibility. Is it a bad place to start? No. I actually think NAIA is the bomb.com. I'm a huge fan of NAIA schools for a number of reasons. One reason is because they're less competitive than NCAA schools. So if you're like, by the way, let's start here. If you're like, what is NAIA? NAIA is another organization similar to the NCAA. Okay. The thing is, it's just one, like it's smaller. Okay. But they're 4-year schools. There's a lot of really good things about them. And you can transfer from NAIA schools to NCAA schools if you want to. Okay. So, other reasons that NAIA schools are awesome, some of them are super high academic, and all of them offer athletic money. So you can get a lot of athletic money from NAIA schools. So think about that. You have less people going for them, meaning they're easier to get. 4-year schools, some of them are super high academic, and you can get athletic scholarships and money. It's a great option for a lot of people. I think they need to look at NAIA seriously. And so is it a good idea if you intend on transferring to another school? Sure. I'll be real with you. My personal opinion is that nobody should ever be going to a school with the intention of transferring out in an ideal world. In an ideal world, you just find your home for 4 years. I think that a lot of people make it sound so much easier than it actually is. They're just like, oh yeah, I'll just transfer in 2 years and I'll get recruited easily and get to go to my dream school. And it's like, no, that's not how that works. And uprooting a kid out of everything they know, their social circles, is like dangerous. Like, please remember that there's other repercussions. But no, you can transfer from an NAIA school to NCAA schools, 100%, no problem with that. And I think NAIA schools are baller. I think they're baller. We've had kids get really big scholarships to NAIA school, easily $100,000 plus scholarships. Is it good to send fitness video? Yeah. Yeah. Any like workout, training video, speed videos, all that stuff is great. Totally. You should feel free to do that kind of stuff. That stuff, I will also say, will be more prevalent in the off season when you're not playing as much. When you're in season and you have a lot of live video, that's what you should be sending. But when you get to the off season, you're not playing as much, those types of things, for sure. For sure. Send that fitness video. 2029 girls lacrosse, trying to now figure out how often to email coaches right now. Have filmed from 4 events, made 4 videos, range from 1:30 to 2 minutes. 2029, how often to email coaches? Not that often. You're still very early. Once every few months, no more than that. As a 2029. Changes as a 2028. As a 2028, you got 6 months roughly until June 15th. Go time for you. Go time for you. But is it 2029? Oh, sorry. You said lacrosse. I'm sorry. I've been on for an hour and 48 minutes. I apologize. You said lacrosse. So 2029 girls lacrosse. Uh, I would still say the same thing. Even though lacrosse is going to recruit earlier, I would still say the same thing and say just every few months right now is fine. When you hit sophomore year, it needs to be more frequent than that. And your whole process is going to get front loaded and then you're going to be done earlier. So that's like the benefit of being lacrosse. There's a pro and a con to being in a sport like lacrosse or volleyball and to not being. If you're the benefit of that is like you're going to be done after 2 months, probably, like if you're a D1 caliber player, after September 1st, which means you have all the rest of junior year and all the rest of senior year to just hang out and not be in the recruiting process. Delightful. But you have a much smaller window to play with. So your freshman and sophomore years will be much busier. It'll probably be much more stressful, right? For other sports, it's the opposite. Freshman and sophomore year are more relaxed. And then junior, senior year will be heavier for them. And the process will take a little bit longer for them. NCAA reduction in team size hurts players, though. Yep, it does hurt players. But also keep in mind, when you have less roster spots, those athletes can get more scholarship money each. So if you're good at recruiting and you know how to get those spots, it's actually still a benefit for you. But for sure, I mean, you have less roster spots, and then you have teams going to the portal, and then you have teams getting international players. Yeah, not a lot of spots. Very competitive. Was thinking roll out once a week, wondering if that's just too much content for a 2029 when lacrosse coaches are looking at 2028. Yeah, once a week is too much for 2029s right now. That's too much. Unnecessary. It's just a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. So flex the muscle every few months, totally fine. And then when you hit 2028, it should be much more frequent. 2028s are 9-1 for lacrosse. That's correct. Any thoughts on sharing mental skills assessment results, persistence, resilience, emotional control? Yes, that is something that you can send, but I had mentioned this a little bit earlier on, which is that that's not going to be sent until a little bit later in your process. Early on, you have to address talent, that your kid is good enough to be there, and then you have to address academics, that your kid has good enough grades to get in. Those are going to be the first two things that you really have to address in the early parts of your process. As you get deeper into the process and coaches start evaluating everything else about the player, then that is something that I would share quick. It doesn't have to, don't make a big deal out of it, but that could be one of your follow-ups, is that you're sharing, hey coach, just thought I'd pass this along. I took a mental skills assessment and here's how I scored. Sorry, you guys had a great game last week. And you can just give them that. And it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like people would like that. So all of that is worth sharing. The mental skills stuff is a really big deal, guys. It's a really big deal. It's really hard when you're in the recruiting process and you're getting beat down. Coaches are not expressing interest. You're not getting as much as you thought. You're not getting it from the divisions that you thought, the schools that you wanted. Maybe you're not playing as well, or you have a bad outing in front of coaches that came to watch you. You're getting rejected a lot. You're getting ghosted by coaches. The recruiting process is hard. And actually, I wonder if I can find the tweet. I wrote a tweet. I'm not sure I can find it though. Yeah, okay. I wrote a tweet that's going to come out later this week. It says, a trait I've noticed from successful families in college recruiting, they say, oh, this is hard and this sucks. But okay, back on the horse, what do we need to do next? And I say success in recruiting doesn't come from the lack of hardship, but the presence of work in hardship. Have you guys ever heard that about courage, where they say courage is not the lack of fear? In fact, you can only have courage in the presence of fear, right? Very similar in recruiting in terms of work. Like recruiting is going to be hard for everybody. The families that win are the ones who don't get discouraged by the hardship, but rather continue to put the work in anyway. Those are the families that will win every time. And if you're waiting for your recruiting process to get easy, it won't. It'll just be worth it. And in fact, I came up with another analogy. If you didn't know, I'm big on analogies. I love analogies. I don't know if you guys like analogies. I'm really big on analogies. And I came up with this one this morning that I think is, I hope not controversial. But here's what it is. And you guys can let me know. Just roast me if you absolutely hate this. But I think that recruiting is similar to giving birth in a lot of ways. And because for women, every single woman says that giving birth sucks. Also, every single woman says giving birth is worth it. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, very different things. One of them, giving birth, is a much bigger deal than getting recruited. Okay. But my point is actually that there are some overlaps where it's like recruiting is going to suck for everyone. Also, the families that push through the suck, it'll be worth it for them. And the families who come out the other side and get the scholarship offer worth tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, who commit to a school that they love, their kid goes on to get a great education, etc. Those families, I've yet to have a family look back that gets an offer like that, looks back and goes, the work wasn't worth it. They never say that, ever. They're like, it sucked. And it was so hard and it was emotionally taxing, but I'd do it again because it was worth it. That's the thing. For a 2027 women's volleyball player with a few early offers, what's the ideal commit window if we want to stay competitive for the best possible offer without waiting too long? Yeah. Again, similar answer to what someone else asked, like how long do I have when I get an offer? The answer is it depends. Okay, Adam. So the answer is it depends. I'll try to give you a little bit more than that, but I have so many questions for you in order for me to actually be able to help you with that. What's the ideal commitment if we want to stay competitive for the best possible offer without waiting too long? Your best bet is leveraging the offers that you currently have to accelerate the timelines of other schools. Difficult to do. Other schools are going to have their timelines, and they're just what their timelines are what their timelines are. But you need to leverage the offers that you have now and push the schools that you're talking to now to give you something more concrete, even if it's not an offer, to say, coach, is this a realistic possibility, or are you just kind of stringing it along because I need to make a decision? If you're still genuinely interested, then maybe I'll hold out. And you need to have like frank conversations with coaches that are still on the fence. Because if you're waiting around for nothing, you're going to be in trouble. This is the same. I mentioned I don't know if you were on yet, Adam, because we've been at it for almost 2 hours now. But like there was another family where this was the case, and they waited on like 10, 15 offers. They ended up not becoming committable. And I just don't want that to happen to you. And so I would push the schools that are on the fence, again, not even to give you an offer, but to give you something that says that they are genuinely interested in watching you. And if you don't get that, then you should look at committing to one of the schools that you have now. But again, I would need a lot more information to give you like more specific school advice on what you should say and how you should handle that. By the way, January 20th, we're hosting an email 101 workshop. You want to learn everything that we're doing with email, the stuff we don't share on social media or on live streams and stuff like that, like the best of the best stuff. Come, d1scholarship.com/workshop. It's $99 a ticket. It's a no-brainer. Come hang out January 20th. It'll be live and I'll be teaching it. Do you find that many kids, girls soccer, tend not to play their senior year if they already have multiple offers or committed? Do they agree with that practice? Most people do not agree with that practice. Most people still play. Are there people who still do, who don't play? Yes. But most people play. I don't agree with that. I think you still should play, because just because you get hurt doesn't mean they'll pull your offer. So like, no, I think you should still play. Thank you for timing. You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Thank you for differentiating the sports when speaking on the timeline. Sons of Football player, 2028 grad. Lots of great information today. Awesome. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you being here, participating, asking questions, all of you guys. Thank you for being here and asking those things. It's weird. 27 people on Instagram, but 72 across Twitter and YouTube. Okay. Thanks. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, guys. Any last questions? I'm doing a countdown in my head from 20 seconds. If there's no question in here in 20 seconds, we're popping and we're bouncing. We've been at this for an hour and 59 minutes and 7 seconds. And for those curious, we'll be back at it tomorrow again. Same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, going live. If you were like, dang, wait, that was not the worst thing in the world, come hang out again tomorrow. Come hang out again tomorrow. We're at about 7 seconds. Thanks for your input. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Good stuff as always. Awesome. Do JUCO years count toward your eligibility? As of right now, unless there's some information that I don't have, yes. There was talk about eligibility getting, like JUCO eligibility not counting toward 4-year. But as far as I know, that has not officially been passed. There's been talk about it potentially doing that. But as far as I know, it's still not a thing. Can you please repeat the one-on-one session again? I don't know what that means. We're doing an email workshop, which is not one-on-one, but I'll be teaching it. That's January 20th. If you want to learn how we generate all the results that we do with email, d1scholarship.com/email workshop. I have it on the screen. We'll be running that workshop. $99 a ticket right now. Prices will go up on January 15th. So if you want the discount, pop in now. That's my same understanding. Just wanted your input. Thank you. Yep. I don't believe that the JUCO eligibility has been officially passed. There was just talk of that, which you got to be careful. There's a lot of people who say that it's like officially passed. It has not been officially passed unless something has come out that I'm not aware of. Okay. Guys, thanks for being here. We're going to go again tomorrow, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. It'll be live. January 20th, email 101 workshop, d1scholarship.com/email workshop. Come hang out. I'm going to teach you everything that we know about recruiting when it comes to email. And I mean, like literally everything. I'm not going to hold anything back. It's going to be awesome. So come hang out. Or do you have to sue to get those years back? Yeah, probably. Anyway, all right, guys. I'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate you all being here as usual, and we'll see you tomorrow.